What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and today, at long last, I'm bringing you my favorite hunter build of the season. Now, I know early on in episode Revenant, I made a video saying the Mask of Fealty hunter build was my favorite build in Destiny, and to be honest, at the time, it was. I could freeze everything on demand and use the newly released Icebreaker to ignite all those frozen enemies with ease. But unfortunately, Bungie has decided to time gate artifact mods, meaning at the time, we didn't have access to the suite of mods that makes this build so powerful and so fun. I've taken this build through Contest of Elders and Expert Onslaught, as well as the Expert Kelsfall exotic mission solo, and even solo GMs. So to say it's strong would be an understatement. It is legitimately one of the best and most fun builds in Destiny. So let's dive in and have a look at this amazing build. It centers around the exotic arms Mothkeeper's wraps. They have the exotic trait Winged Eclipse. Your grenade becomes a cage of loyal moths that release on impact and fly towards the nearest target or ally. If they reach a target, they detonate in a blinding explosion. If they reach an ally, the moths grant your ally a void overshield. And something to note is they can also track to yourself to supply you with an overshield. So right off the bat, we have two verb synergies with this build. The first one is Void Overshield. This is an overshield that gives you 45 more health, but more importantly, grants you 70% damage resistance. This is extremely powerful, especially in endgame content. It makes you tanky and really helps with survivability. And the next verb it has synergy with is Blind, a verb that I've praised in the past as being one of the strongest verbs in the game, but also one of the hardest to apply. And this build makes it nearly constant. It's just incredible. It disorients enemies for a whopping 10 seconds, and it can also be used to stun unstoppable champions. The blind debuff can also apply to bosses, which is important to know because it cannot disorient them, but much like freeze, they can still be hit by it, just not affected by it. So now that we know the synergies that are going on, let's look at the build and figure out how we can optimize it to be throwing as many moths as possible. So one thing to note is that when running this exotic, it will replace your grenade ability with loyal moths, and this grenade has a base 73 second cooldown. I tested it with different grenade types to see if we could get a quicker cooldown, and we cannot. At tier 10 discipline, the Duskfield grenade and the Arc Bolt grenade, despite having different base cooldowns, both took 39 seconds to regen, which is honestly pretty quick. But this is important to know as it does not matter which grenade that you equip. As for your class ability, I like to run Gambler's Dodge, which gives me my melee back when I dodge near an enemy. And this is really helpful because it will give me a Withering Blade Shuriken, which I can use to slow enemies, or I can toss out 2 shurikens to freeze them. This gives us a ton of utility. As for the super, you can run literally any super, just whatever is best for the activity. Silk Strike is amazing since the roaming super cooldown changes, and I've even soloed a GM using Storm's Edge, so really anything is viable. So now that we know our abilities, let's look at our aspects. The first and most important one is Stylish Executioner. Defeating a target affected by any elemental debuff grants Invis and True Sight, and your next melee attack while invisible also weakens targets. This is wonderful to run, as with this build you will constantly be going invisible as nearly everything you kill will be affected by an elemental debuff. Your grenades blind enemies, your melees slower freeze, and I even use weapons that can make you invis, which I will get to. Point is, you need this aspect. For your next aspect, it really doesn't matter. I use Gunpowder Gamble to make explosions to help with ad clear, but you could use anything. Ascension would allow you to apply Jolt to targets, which can make you invis, Threaded Spectre can make a decoy for you, and Winter Shroud can be used to slow enemies when you dodge near them, which again, can then proc Stylus Executioner. So truly, you can run whatever you want. When we get to the fragments, the options are pretty open here as well, but there's one that you must run, and that is Facet of Dominance. Your Void Grenades weaken targets and your Arc Grenades jolt targets. This is massively important as it now allows your Moth Grenades to jolt targets. Again, I did test this, and sadly, equipping a Magnetic Grenade will not allow it to weaken. The Loyal Moths are Arc Grenades no matter what grenade you have equipped, so once again, your grenade choice does not matter. However, this fragment is extremely powerful as this build is built around chucking your grenades as often as possible, so now not only will they blind targets, they will also jolt them, allowing you to deal more damage to them and splash damage to nearby enemies. So this is extremely powerful with this build. Outside of this, you are free to run what you like, but I will just say which ones I like running. I run Facet of Awakening for a plus 10 to resilience, and it makes an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. This is great as with this build we get lots of arc kills, and Ionic Traces grant us a lot more ability energy, allowing us to increase our ability spam even more. Facet of Courage is also great as it gives us plus 10 to Discipline and it buffs our Arc, Solar, and Void ability damage to targets afflicted with Darkness debuffs. This is a 10% buff and we slow so many things with this build, so now our Moths are hitting even harder. Then we have Facet of Protection for plus 10 to Strength and 15% damage resistance when we're surrounded by enemies, which we basically always are with this build, so this just helps with survivability. And finally, Facet of Dawn, so that every time we throw a shuriken and deal damage, we will become Radiant, allowing our weapons to hit for 25% more damage, as well as giving our weapons anti-barrier capability. So this loadout can handle all 3 champion types on its own. You can slow and jolt targets to deal with overloads, you can freeze and blind to deal with unstops, as well as ignite with a gunpowder gamble if you go that route. And then you can use your weapons while Radiant to break barrier shields. The utility of this build is just off the charts, and if there's one thing I love, it's utility. People recently grilled me for some of the rankings on my exotic weapon top 10 lists, and that is because they think that weapon strength is all that matters, where I ranked a lot of weapons higher because of their utility, and utility matters a lot more the further you dive into endgame content. So in saying that, this is a build that absolutely shines in endgame. Onto weapons, this is where this build gets extremely fun. I like to run a double special loadout, where in the kinetic slot I use Tenacious Mastery. This is a stasis rocket sidearm from Iron Banner, and I just spoke of utility. Well, this weapon can handle all 3 champion types on its own if you have Chill Clip. 1 shot will slow, which can stun an overload, 3 shots will freeze, and when we shatter that freeze, we'll stun an unstop, and then if we're Radiant, we can pop a barrier shield in just 1 shot. It's just an absolutely outstanding weapon, and it has great ammo reserves, making it awesome for double special. Next, we have the star of the season in Exderis. This weapon is a freaking powerhouse, and it is better than ever this season. We have Overload Grenade Launcher, which allows it to stun overloads, Concussive Reload allowing it to weaken on hit, and then if we land a couple shots on one target, it will spawn a Moth, which can blind the enemies. One thing to note is I did test it, and the Moths from Exderis do not apply Jolt, only the Moths from your grenades. Also, kills with this weapon will also spawn a Moth, so this weapon just allows you to make even more Moths and blind way more enemies. And it gets even better, as we have more artifact mods that juice this build and the weapon up. The big one is Arc Compounding. Arc sources deal increased damage to blind targets, so this gives all of our arc sources 15% more damage to blinded enemies, meaning Exderis can apply a 15% weaken as well as deal an additional 15% more damage when the target is blinded, resulting in it dealing a whopping 32.25% more damage. That's just crazy, and this weapon already hits pretty hard. It takes it from being great to meta, and on top of all that is you never have to reload this weapon. I just love it. To round out the artifact mods, you could run Conductive Cosmic Crystal if you like for even more damage, or Kinetic Impacts depending on your heavy weapon. The heavy weapon is up to you, but Bittersweet is a great choice, and I also like running it with an Arc Sword. Trace Evidence is good to run as well, as is the Thick of It, Curative Orbs, and Retinal Burn for applying even more blind if you have a Precision Arc weapon on. An Authorized Mods Grenade is also recommended. So let's talk about the mods next. You don't have to get too crazy here. On the helmet, I just run Arc and Stasis Siphons for making orbs, and then Ashes to Assets for more super energy from grenade kills. The grenades don't get a ton of kills as they are more used for applying Jolt and Blind, but they will still get a kill from time to time. On the gloves, Firepower to make an orb from a grenade kill, and then Momentum Transfer and Bolstering Detonation for class ability and melee ability energy when we deal damage with a grenade. Or you could go the other way and have Impact Induction to grant you grenade energy when you deal damage with your melee. The choice is up to you. Another option is you could run grenade kickstart mods, which I have also done. If I'm in an activity with rally flags like Kel's Fall or Contest of Elders, I choose this instead. But in solo GMs, I run Special Finisher to keep my special ammo topped up. But if ammo is less of a concern, then you can definitely use your armor charges on grenade kickstart mods instead. I actually love running it this way. The chest piece is just resistances relevant to the activity. The legs, you can go a lot of different ways here as well. Innervation is great for grenade energy on orb pickup, and Absolution will apply ability energy to all your abilities on orb pickup. And then again, I like Arc Scavenger, but if you have rally flags, then maybe Recuperation or something. On the class item, I had Reaper, Special Finisher, and Proximity Ward, but that was for a solo GM. In lower end content, Bomber and Distribution would be the way to go for sure. And that is it for the video. This build has been so freaking much fun to run. I'm shocked at how powerful it is, and it has quickly become one of my favorite builds in the entire game. and though it is at its most powerful right now, mostly due to arc compounding, it will continue to be a staple build of mine in the future. It's that good. Leave a like if you liked the video, and subscribe for more Destiny 2 content, and if you're still here, thanks so much for watching to the end. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Hey, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. If you like what I do and you want to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member. You'll get your name featured on the end screen, custom badges, and other cool rewards. You can also join my community Discord if that interests you, and if you want to see me stream, be sure to follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 where I stream semi-regularly. Those are linked in the description. Anyways, that's enough self-promotion. Thanks for watching. Take care.